Now, a few weeks ago, I made a video with some ideas for the Rey movie, or what I would begin to do with it in order to try and quote-unquote save the character for those who maybe hadn't exactly liked her and or the sequel trilogy she came from. And to very quickly recap that video before getting to the start of the story, actually, though if you remember that video and want to skip ahead, you certainly can. But what my outline basically had been was to actually play into the fact that many fans here in the real world don't like the character, that they don't like Rey, by having her not so well liked in-universe either, where the truth had come out that she was actually Palpatine's grandchild, or the daughter of one of his clones, technically. And many, again in-universe, believe she was actually siding with Palpatine the whole time, part of his plan, and they simply don't trust her. All the while then, the galaxy itself would sort of be in chaos, that after the destruction of the New Republic, as seen in Episode 7, and the brief reign of the First Order, most of the systems in the galaxy that used to be in the Republic simply don't trust each other anymore, or they would have become rather isolationist because they simply want to fend for their own instead of devoting themselves or their resources to another galactic government destined to fail or be taken over. And then with this being the case with no strong central government in the galaxy, there's a lot of trouble with pirates and crime syndicates and the like. They've basically taken over and are making things, any sort of trade between systems, they're making it extremely difficult. And again, the galaxy is just in a complete state of disarray. And there seems to be no hope of the Jedi coming back with no one trusting Rey. In fact, she's even going to disappear and go on a sort of spiritual journey and needs retraining, and we'll get more into that in a bit. However, in her absence, I wanted to introduce a new Jedi character, one that will save the day and seemingly come out of nowhere to be the hero he will even claim to be, at least have been trained by Yoda himself after Yoda, went into exile, and this Jedi has been sort of lost all this time in the unknown regions. He's been fighting a very different enemy there, which will then be our new enemy of this movie, or the trilogy actually. I'm kind of treating this like it's the first episode of 10, 11, and 12. Anyway, my ultimate goal with this Jedi character is to keep the audience kind of guessing pretty much the whole time as to his true origin and motivation. I want to sort of play with this moment from The Empire Strikes Back.
That boy is our last hope.
No, there is another.
I want to imply he could be the other Yoda spoke of, though yes, it's almost certainly meant to be Leia, even though at the time The Empire Strikes Back was made, it wasn't going to be Leia. It was going to be a brand new character who would end up to be Luke's sister, and, well, that's a whole other story. Another issue then with Yoda referring to Leia being the other is Obi-Wan obviously knows about Leia, especially if we take the Kenobi series into account, which I would, considering I'm trying to fit this into the Disney canon. And, well, he shouldn't need to be reminded of Leia's importance by Yoda, since he kind of knows her very well and would certainly remember her. So what if Yoda is possibly talking about another entirely different character that Obi-Wan never knew? What if he's talking about maybe, just maybe, this Jedi character in our new trilogy who will, yes, know that Yoda hid on Dagobah and know a lot about him, which kind of lends credence or credibility to his story. Alright, brief recap done. What I want to do with this video is basically give you the start of the story, or my idea for the very opening of the movie, the first 5 to 10 minutes essentially. The first two scenes, really. And just like last time, or with that last video where most of you seemed to like my idea, or at the very least were willing to give it a shot, I'll once again leave it all up to you if you want to see this continue, or maybe not continue. Plus, I'm very cool with this being a sort of collaboration with all of you, because in response to that last video, this comment was left by Emmett Harris that basically said, in the absence of Kylo or Ben, Rey could sort of be depowered now and need to retrain since the dyad is broken. And I loved that idea so much that I plan to incorporate it into the story. I mean, the more hardship for Rey, the more likely people are to maybe start to come around and care about the character and want to see her win in the end. And so after watching this part, if you have other ideas about the story that you think would work and you want to share them, do tell them or do tell me in the comments below, and maybe I will work them in. Let's build this story together. Let's save Rey together, because this really is a sort of a rough draft still. None of this is 100% finalized, including the opening crawl, which we're about to get to. I'm not entirely satisfied with it, but it will work for now. Either way, what I want this opening to do, what I'm hoping to accomplish with the first, again, 5 to 10 minutes of the movie, is a few different, very important things. I want to set the stage for the galaxy, what's wrong with it. I want to give us a taste, just a taste of our new villains and how powerful they possibly are. And I want to show what's going on with Rey. I want to set up her story to let the audience see how far she has fallen since the last time we saw her, which, yeah, that does sound a bit familiar, doesn't it? But we first have to kick it off with the aforementioned opening crawl, which will go a little something like this. Chaos. The galaxy is on the brink of war with itself as the remains of the New Republic struggle to unify after the brutal reign of the First Order. Criminal syndicates and pirates take advantage of the turmoil. Rey Skywalker has proclaimed to the galaxy that she will bring back the Jedi Order to protect them, but a dark secret has come out about her past. She is the continuation of the Palpatine bloodline, and many believe her intentions are nefarious. Hoping to grow the newly conceived Galaxy Republic, Poe Dameron and Finn have invited prominent system leaders to a meeting above the planet Eratos. And then, after the crawl fades away, the camera will of course pan down, and in the distance a bit with a starfield backdrop, we will see a planet. A green and blue planet is fine, and a fleet of all different shapes and sizes of ships will be gathered above it, when suddenly another ship will emerge from hyperspace right where we are, right where the camera basically is. Again, we are a good distance away from the planet and the fleet of ships, and it's a small shuttle that starts making its way towards that fleet. And then moments later, a much larger ship will come out of hyperspace behind it and immediately open fire on it. And though the first ship, the smaller shuttle, will look kind of normal, it'll more or less have the style of your average Star Wars ship, the larger one I want to look very different from anything we have ever seen before in Star Wars. I want it to have a sort of organic look and feel to match the villains of the story, which we will get more into at a later time, should this all continue on, of course. After that, we're taken to the bridge of one of the ships above the planet, one of the Galactic Republic ships, and we'll see none other than Finn and Poe. Yes, I am bringing them both back, and they will both be dressed, shall we say, rather formally, especially Poe. There will be a brief conversation between the two of them about how surprised they are that almost everyone showed up to the conference, and that seemingly none of them were attacked by pirates along the way, though the Dracolian delegation is notably and worryingly late to the party. That's when someone else on the bridge calls out 2 more ships just emerged from hyperspace, and Poe will say, the Dracolians finally made it, and the other one, the one who informed him that the ships were here, will immediately respond, one of the ships is firing on the other. Poe and Finn then look at each other at the same time and say in unison, pirates. It's Finn who then says to scramble our fighters, let's give them a hand. Poe then turns like he's quickly heading off somewhere, but Finn grabs him by the shoulder, turns him back around and asks, where do you think you're going? Poe then makes a bit of a gesture to what we can assume is the hangar bay and says, I thought maybe, but Finn just interrupts him and shakes his head and says, I think you should sit this one out, Chancellor Dameron. And Poe just grumbles something like, you're probably right. We're then taken out into space and watch the shuttle make all sorts of fancy maneuvers as it dodges most of these big green laser bolts coming from the strange organic-looking ship. Soon enough, the fighters that were sent to help reach them and begin attacking the organic ship, and many are just quickly destroyed. We then go back to Poe and Finn as they hear about the fighters being destroyed, and Finn looks at Poe and simply says to that look on Poe's face, that eager look to go and help, still no. Long story short here, the shuttle eventually reaches the fleet of other ships, the Galactic Fleet, and this fleet is sort of led by one that looks very similar to the Raddus from The Last Jedi, the same type of ship basically, how we can even call it the Holdo for fun, and that is the ship that Poe and Finn are on, and also the ship that the recently arrived shuttle is heading towards or docking with, or landing in the hangar bay. A brief, albeit exciting, space battle ensues between all the ships, where the let's keep calling it organic ship damages or even destroys a few of the other ships and more of the fighters, but ultimately it will just jump back into hyperspace even though it seemingly was easily winning this fight, which Finn and Poe will of course comment on. Furthermore, at some point during the battle, Poe will also say how he's never seen anything quite like this ship, that the pirates have gotten their hands on some pretty serious firepower. But Finn will make his way to a large viewport, look out at this strange-looking organic ship, and as if he is sensing or feeling something through the Force, he will say, they're not pirates. After all that then, after the shuttle lands and Poe and Finn are still expecting this to be the missing delegation, they go down to the hangar to meet them and see if they're, of course, okay after the experience. But when the shuttle ramp lowers, someone quite clearly dressed as a Jedi, lightsaber hanging from their belt and all, will walk down it, and I haven't decided if they're going to be a human or an alien or what yet. I haven't even come up with a name. I'll take suggestions in the comments below if you want. But he will introduce himself as a Jedi Master. That is when we move on to the next scene, the second one I mentioned and will be covering in this video, where Rey is once again back on the planet Ahch-To at the first Jedi Temple that we, of course, saw in the sequel trilogy. And she's just kind of walking around looking a bit lost or distraught, or like she's maybe looking for something. And that's when the Force ghost of Luke Skywalker will manifest and say something like, "Really, Rey? Back again? Shouldn't you be out there helping the galaxy? Didn't you learn anything from me about what not to do?" She'll respond, "The galaxy doesn't want me. They think I was with Palpatine." "And were you?" Luke will ask back rather plainly. She will of course vehemently shake her head and say, "Of course not." Luke then simply responds, "Well, then you need to convince the galaxy of that." "But how?" she will ask. "By being a Jedi," is all Luke says, but Rey shakes her head to that. "I don't know how to be that. I don't have the power anymore." Luke then frowns and responds, "The Force isn't a power, Rey. I thought we covered that the first time you were here." Rey then says, "You don't understand. When Ben died, a part of me died with him. I feel this hole inside of me. I can't use the Force like I once did." Luke gives a sympathetic look and says, "You need training." Rey's face then brightens and she says, You'll... But Luke cuts her off and says, "I can't train you, Rey. I'm only here to say goodbye. This is the last time I can see you." Rey, of course, looks disappointed and confused. "Goodbye, but I need your help." Luke again offers a sympathetic look and says, "It doesn't work that way. What I have become, where I am now, things work differently here." Rey then says with a spark of hope in her eyes, or she asks, "Ben, is he there with you? If he is, could I see him?" Luke then lets out a sigh, not of disappointment, but more like one of regret. He then says, "He's with us, Rey, as one day you might be. But first, the galaxy needs you." Tears begin to well up in Rey's eyes as she says, "I don't know how to help. Tell me what to do." Luke again sighs and then says, "I can only tell you that I was once where you are now. Alone and confused. No idea how to start over a Jedi Order that had been around for 1,000 generations before me." She then lowers her head as the tears start to fall, and that's when Luke takes a few steps towards her and says, as he lays a ghostly hand upon her shoulder, "In my hut you'll find a compass. I never figured out exactly where it was trying to point me, but maybe you will." And with those words said, Luke will slowly fade away, and that is how the scene will end. And that is also where I'm going to end this video. It's going to now be your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you thought of my beginning. Again, it's not 100% final. Some work could be certainly done on it. I will take suggestions, as I said, in the comments below. But either way, do take to those comments. Tell me what you think, or offer your suggestions, or come up with a name for the new Jedi character. Whatever you decide to do, though, let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.